Notice what happens to your heart rate when a conversation comes to a sudden stop. 4 seconds of an awkward pause is all it takes for subjective anxiety to skyrocket. When a conversational rhythm breaks, our brain's ancient threat detection mechanisms interpret the silence as impending social rejection, a historically lethal scenario for early humans relying on the tribe to survive. Our bodies flood with adrenaline, treating the quiet like a physical threat. Linguistic research reveals silence as an active structural pillar, a medium for cognitive processing and emotional regulation that provides the essential architecture for human interaction. Organizational psychologists categorize this architecture into 4 distinct typologies. This matrix maps them based on a speaker's cognitive state and strategic intent. We have acquiescent, defensive, prosocial, and reflective silence, plotted across axes of fear versus empathy and impulse versus analysis. Looking closely at these quadrants, clear patterns emerge. Prosocial and processing silences indicate a highly cohesive environment where people feel safe to deliberate and protect one another. On the other hand, defensive and acquiescent silences, rooted in fear of retaliation or chronic apathy, signal a toxic, deeply hierarchical dysfunction. True conversational intelligence requires listening past the sheer volume of speech. To accurately read a room, you have to decode exactly which type of quiet is operating within the group. This dynamic extends inward. During a conversation, you are not a passive receptacle for acoustic data. Intermittent pauses allow the listener to engage what researchers call the psychic ear, a critical transition where attention shifts from the speaker's words to the listener's own internal reflections. Without this wordless space, cognitive digestion and memory encoding simply cannot happen. Our baseline personality traits dictate how much of this internal quiet we need. While some thrive on rapid verbal exchange, introverted individuals rely heavily on silent reflection to formulate precise, highly considered responses. Forcing them to speak prematurely physically suppresses their cognitive processing capabilities. A social or corporate culture that demands constant verbal output often assumes it's driving collaboration. In reality, it actively isolates those who need processing time, engineering a state of pathological shame and stifling high-quality insights before they can fully form. In total quiet, the brain engages in sophisticated restorative activity. Functional imaging shows that the deliberate attempt to hear in a silent environment stimulates the auditory cortex. This heightened state of alert triggers adult neurogenesis, the literal generation of new precursor cells and immature neurons, expanding the brain's plasticity. Compare that brain growth to the effects of chronic noise pollution. High ambient noise levels rapidly deplete our cognitive resources. Developmental studies track children exposed to constant noise from flight paths or busy highways. They suffer from slower language development, stunted reading attention, and severely impaired problem-solving skills. Look at this schematic of a neural network to see how the brain stores information without constant noise. It demonstrates activity-silent working memory. During memory maintenance, selective neural activity goes completely dormant, yet the target information remains safely locked in place. The mammalian brain structurally integrates this cognitive silence to manipulate data efficiently. This accumulates over time. Tracking demonstrates that prolonged quiet physically alters brain anatomy, measurably strengthening the white matter pathway connecting our emotional limbic system to our logical frontal lobe. Silence is an active biological replenisher. It physically expands the brain's capacity to learn, regulate our emotions, and integrate novel data. During high-stakes conversations, silence operates as a physiological circuit breaker. Injecting a deliberate, mindful pause when threatened intercepts the amygdala's alarm bells. It actively downregulates the autonomic nervous system, staving off cortisol spikes and providing the mental room to demonstrate empathy instead of pure reaction. But there is a biological breaking point. Under extreme distress, silence becomes involuntary. Psychological researchers refer to this as flooding. The autonomic nervous system becomes so overwhelmingly activated by stress that the biological capacity to process information plummets. The body pulls the emergency brake, completely shutting down verbal communication to survive the crisis. This chart compares the average duration of silence in critical medical settings. Notice how quickly the bars stop. Physicians interrupt their patients after a median of merely 11 seconds. Detailed acoustic analysis shows the average silence in psychotherapy sessions lasts just 0.96 seconds, falling far short of the timeline required to digest complex emotional trauma. Whether deployed intentionally to regulate a heated meeting or triggered involuntarily by a nervous system in crisis, silence remains the human body's ultimate baseline for surviving and processing intense stress. In the corporate and legal arenas, the pause is stripped of its therapeutic associations. While novice negotiators fear the conversational void, elite attorneys and executives actively weaponize it. One of the most common psychological traps in deal-making is aggressive anchoring, where a counterpart drops an extreme, outrageous number to warp the trajectory of the discussion. Reacting to this anchor with an immediate, vocal protest is a critical error. Speaking keeps the negotiation orbiting around that specific figure, inadvertently legitimizing the opponent's premise. Top tech leaders counter this by employing the 3-second rule. By responding to an aggressive offer with stunned, unshakable silence, they communicate intense disapproval without escalating hostilities. This localized vacuum of discomfort creates profound uncertainty, frequently prompting the other party to spontaneously bid against themselves, simply to escape the quiet. In the economics of leverage, the pause does the heavy lifting. It buys the crucial seconds needed to evaluate cognitive biases, serving as the most efficient, cost-free mechanism available to neutralize psychological traps and reclaim conversational control. This command over the void extends to public speaking. Historical visionaries painstakingly engineered the silences between their words to build theatrical drama and frame their core messages. By inserting the dramatic pause right before a surprise twist or central thesis, leaders like Winston Churchill transformed standard presentations into acts of supreme command, demanding total audience attention. Martin Luther King Jr. deployed the pause for emphasis before and after critical phrases, forcing the gravity of his words to sink in and embed permanently into the collective consciousness. Modern visionaries like Steve Jobs implemented the "I'm thinking" pause. Instead of using anxious filler words like or he would stop completely. This simple act projected deep thoughtfulness and absolute control over the pacing of his message. Projecting true rhetorical authority requires overcoming our intense biological discomfort with quiet. The most persuasive force on a stage isn't continuous sound. It is the engineered mastery of the void. Zooming out to global diplomacy, the etiquette of the pause varies drastically. This side-by-side visualization illustrates a massive cultural divide. Notice the 6 hours and 43 minutes of daily conversation in the direct, low-context United States, compared to the 3 hours and 31 minutes in Japan. Eastern philosophy views silence as the mind sounding inside, a source of great strength, respect, and cognitive clarity. Within the South Asian collectivist culture of Bengal, silence serves a highly specific socio-political function. Prolonged quiet during professional meetings is a strict structural tool used to manage deep social hierarchy. Subordinates utilize silence to show deference to senior leaders, effectively protecting a superior's reputation, or face, from the threat of direct vocal disagreement. Respectful quiet has a dark reflection. Authoritative regimes frequently weaponize communication to dismantle democratic discourse. By tagging dissidents with stigmatized labels and deploying coordinated digital harassment, states flood the public square with overwhelming noise. This barrage enforces an oppressive, systemic silence upon the populace out of sheer self-preservation. The traditional Bengali proverb, "The thief's mother shouts the loudest," encapsulates this dynamic. It suggests that those who rely on loud, continuous, and overwhelming speech are often acting from a place of insecurity rather than genuine strength. We spend so much of our lives trying to fill the gaps, yet the empirical data tells a different story. Silence is a biological builder of the brain. It is a strategic lever of power, and when embraced, It provides the ultimate architecture for authentic, robust human connection.